Welcome back to Grimverse History, where we uncover the strange and forgotten sides of history. Tonight, we step into the life of Ferdinand, the inbred king born with a skull full of water and liquid bones. For centuries, the Habsburgs guarded their bloodline like a holy relic. They believed purity would protect their empire, but purity became poison. And in 1793, that poison took the shape of a newborn prince, a baby who couldn't cry, a skull swollen with fluid instead of thought, bones too soft to hold his own weight. This wasn't a miracle heir. This was the physical collapse of an entire dynasty in one fragile body. You step through a heavy wooden door. The air inside is thick with incense and fear. Candle smoke drifts toward the ceiling. Somewhere in the chamber ahead, a newborn gasps for breath. Your footsteps echo softly, as if even the palace itself is holding still. Take a slow breath. Let your shoulders soften. Let the noise of your day fade. You're safe here. You're only here to witness. And if this quiet journey through the past brings you comfort, feel free to tap like and subscribe for more midnight histories. Now, dim the lights. Let the room settle. Let the hum around you become a steady heartbeat. Slow your thoughts. Let the past rise gently around you. It is the winter of 1793. Vienna sleeps beneath a pale white sky. Behind velvet curtains and marble walls, a child has just been born. A child meant to be the future of an empire. But the midwives exchange frightened glances. They see what others cannot. This newborn is already breaking. He is the final echo of a dynasty undone by its own blood. The birth of a genetic tragedy. You stand in a quiet palace corridor. The air is warm from candle flames. Too warm. Someone tries to cool the room by opening a window, but the smell of sweat and incense still clings to everything. Inside the birthing chamber, the midwives move quickly. Their hands are calm, but their eyes keep betraying them. They know the empire expects a strong, healthy prince, the next ruler of the mighty Habsburgs. But the Habsburgs have a habit. They marry their cousins, and sometimes each other twice. After 200 years of that, even the blood looks tired. The baby arrives with no cry, no sound at all. He simply lies there, quiet, fragile, still. His head is unusually large and swollen. The skull bones don't meet. They float apart, soft as warm wax. When the midwife lifts him, his head shifts like liquid inside a bowl. He doesn't reach out. He doesn't blink with purpose. His body trembles in uneven little shivers. This is not the signal of a strong newborn. This is the body saying, "I'm trying, but it's not going well." The midwives trade worried looks. No one wants to say it. Not in front of royalty, not in front of an empire that worships pure blood. The court waits outside for good news. They expect a perfect heir. They will not be getting one. The empress is pale and exhausted. She takes the baby gently, searching his face for hope. A sign of health, a spark of intelligence, anything at all. She finds nothing. Just softness where bone should be firm. Just silence where a cry should be loud. Still she smiles, because queens don't get to panic. They only get to pretend. A doctor examines the infant. He checks the pulse, the reflexes, the breathing. He waits for reactions that do not come. Finally, he clears his throat. In this palace, that is the medical version of, "This is very bad." He and the midwives whisper to each other, passing the truth around the room, like a secret no one wants to hold. The baby is wrapped in a velvet blanket. It's too heavy for him. His head droops sideways. The bones slide slightly under his skin. A midwife quickly steadies it. She hopes no one saw her flinch, but someone always sees. Finally, the official announcement goes out. A healthy prince. It is a lie. A necessary one. A traditional one. Outside, the cold Vienna air carries the lie away. Inside, the baby makes a small, strained sound. Barely a breath. Not a cry. Just a reminder that survival will not be simple. The candles flicker, almost as if warning the room, but no one listens. A childhood built on frailty. You walk into another room of the palace. This one is quieter. Too quiet for a place raising a future emperor. The windows stay shuttered most days, not because of the weather, but because the palace prefers shadows over questions. You see the young prince lying on a soft mattress. He is older now. Months have passed. Yet almost nothing about him has changed. He still trembles. His head still feels too heavy for his body. His limbs move in small, confused motions, like he is trying to understand where they belong. The nurses speak softly around him. They call it delicate health, a polite umbrella that covers epileptic fits, muscle weakness, slow reactions, and a handful of symptoms no one has names for yet. Royal vocabulary works hard in this palace, harder than most of the royals. When the seizures begin, the room turns into a lesson in fear. His body stiffens. His eyes roll upward. A small, broken sound escapes him. Something between a gasp and a plea. The nurses rush forward. They hold him carefully, as if touching a soap bubble that trembles on the edge of bursting. His breaths come in short, uneven pulls. His fingers curl tightly, and when the fit ends, he lies limp for hours, sweating, drained, barely conscious. A child should not look so tired from existing. The court physicians offer explanations, too many, too vague, too hopeful. They call it nervous storms. They are lying, but gently. Every morning they test his progress. Can he sit up? No. Can he grasp a wooden toy? Sometimes. Can he form sounds that resemble words? Not really. His gestures stay slow, soft, uncertain, like his body keeps waiting for instructions that never arrive. The court tries to hide the truth. Visitors are kept at a distance. Curtains stay drawn. Only the healthiest moments of the prince's day are allowed to be seen. A few minutes when he looks calm, and his head stays upright with help. They call it a promising sign, and they cling to it like a rope over a cliff. But behind closed doors, the reality is painful in its simplicity. He cannot walk. He cannot speak. He cannot chew solid food without someone guiding his jaw. Most days, the palace feels less like a gilded cradle and more like a quiet hospital room. You watch him attempt to crawl. His arms shake. His legs fold under him. His forehead presses into the mattress, as though the weight of his own skull pulls him downward. The nurse picks him up again, whispering encouragement. Her voice trembles more than he does. Time moves slowly for him, slow in a way that aches to witness. The world grows around him, seasons changing, parties echoing through the halls, ambassadors arriving, and he remains stuck in the fragile body he was born with. The palace begins crafting illusions, tiny theatre plays of progress, short walks, performed with 2 attendants holding him up, lessons he attends, even though he cannot follow a single sentence. Meals where he eats independently, which means someone moves the spoon while his hand holds the handle. Everyone participates in the performance, even the walls. They absorb the lies politely. You step closer to the boy. His eyes drift slowly, trying to focus on you. There is softness there, curiosity maybe, or simply the habit of looking at shapes that move and glow. He smiles suddenly. A small, gentle curl of the lips. It is the kind of smile a child gives not because he understands something, but because he feels a moment of peace. It lasts a second. Then the tremor returns. His head droops forward. The nurse reaches out, she always does, and steadies him. The court keeps hoping for a miracle. The palace keeps pretending. And the prince keeps slipping between seizures, fatigue, and stillness. Some childhoods are filled with laughter. His is filled with caretakers, and the palace learns to call that normal, because calling it the truth would make everything collapse far too early. You take one last look at him. A small boy surrounded by velvet, fragile as pressed glass. And the thought appears quietly. This child will not grow into the man they imagine. He can barely grow into himself. The candles flicker again, same warning, still ignored. Still, a man who never grew into his body. The palace brightened the halls with more chandeliers, as if adding light could compensate for everything light could not fix. It became a habit in the Habsburg world. When reality refused to cooperate, they installed decorations. Physically, Ferdinand remained in a state of gentle delay. His limbs stayed thin, his posture collapsed easily, and his head remained disproportionately heavy, a burden that pulled him downward with every attempt at standing. Each rise from a chair looked like a careful negotiation between his knees, gravity, and the hopeful hands of attendants. Those attendants remained close at all times. Their presence was quiet, choreographed, almost invisible. But the frequency with which Ferdinand stumbled made their intentions clear. A simple shift in weight could unravel him. A misplaced step could end in a slow, spiraling collapse. Routine became a cycle of lifting, steadying, and pretending these moments were minor accidents rather than daily patterns. His mind developed with the same uneven rhythm. Some mornings brought surprising clarity. A connection formed. A thought expressed cleanly. A short sentence that made sense. Other days drifted into loops of confusion, unfinished ideas, and sudden laughter at things only he understood. He smiled with sincere softness, the kind born from an inner world that never fully matched the one around him. Despite this, the court pressed the narrative of progress. The phrase appeared in reports, briefings, and polite conversations. It hung in the air like perfume, pleasant but based on nothing. As marriage age approached, the dynasty did what it always did. It searched for solutions within the family tree. A predictable strategy for a lineage shaped more by repetition than variety. The result was Maria Anna. Gentle, patient, dutiful. She entered the palace with calm composure, already understanding more than anyone had said aloud. Their first conversations revealed everything. She asked simple questions. Ferdinand answered in unrelated fragments. A note about the roof, a comment about pears, a laugh at his own wandering thoughts. His confusion amused him. Her confusion remained politely hidden. Even so, the wedding proceeded with ceremony and confidence. Dynasties rarely allow biology to interrupt choreography. Their married life unfolded quietly, respectful, gentle, and undeniably distant. Attempts at fulfilling marital expectations met the same obstacles that shadowed all of Ferdinand's life. His body could not bear the strain. His seizures interrupted any effort before it began. Fatigue arrived fast, and confusion filled whatever moments fatigue spared. Court physicians invented new vocabulary to cushion the truth. Momentary weakness, constitutional delicacy, temporary marital limitation. Every phrase wrapped reality in silk, so no one had to touch it directly. Maria Anna adapted with quiet grace. Her patience became a daily act of diplomacy. She treated Ferdinand with kindness, care, and a resigned tenderness reserved for situations without solutions. There was no resentment in her eyes, only the steady sadness of a woman married to a life predetermined by other people. The palace, meanwhile, attempted to drown the silence in ceremonies and diplomatic dinners. But silence outlived them easily. It settled into corners and lingered behind curtains, unbothered by music or candlelight. Ferdinand continued living in his gentle rhythm, feeding scraps to palace dogs, smiling at servants, finding humor in small accidents, and asking questions that made the court pause, such as whether birds experienced headaches. It was one of his clearer inquiries. He remained sweet, harmless, and entirely disconnected from the political weight placed on his name. The empire watched him move through the halls with the slow, drifting calm of someone who had never been built for crowns or duties. One evening, Ferdinand rose from his chair. His legs shook, his arms flinched. The attendants rushed in, lifting him gently, resetting the fragile balance that kept him upright. It was a small scene, soft, brief, easily overlooked, but it said everything. Some men grow into power. Ferdinand grew into cushions, and the dynasty continued pretending that destiny had not already chosen another path. A crown too heavy for a frail body. Ferdinand eventually inherited the throne, though the word inherited did more work than the man wearing the crown. His ascension in 1835 felt less like the rise of a ruler and more like the changing of labels on a fragile package. The ceremony was grand. The expectations were not. From the start, it was clear the real governing would belong to Metternich and the Council of Regency. They stepped into power with confident shoes, while Ferdinand stepped in with trembling knees and a crown that slipped slightly to one side. The empire called this arrangement practical. It was, in fact, the only option. His days as emperor were shaped around his limitations. Schedules avoided stress. Meetings stayed short. Documents were simplified to the point where important decisions could be mistaken for grocery lists. He signed what he was told to sign. He agreed with whatever was repeated slowly enough. Obedience came naturally to him. It was the only part of ruling he could manage consistently. The seizures continued into adulthood, sometimes mild, often violent. They arrived without warning, turning official gatherings into sudden displays of panic, disguised as medical intermissions. After each episode, he lay exhausted for hours, face pale, breath thin, mind drifting in and out of awareness. The empire functioned around him, carefully stepping over the truth. Other symptoms followed: temporary paralysis that froze half his body, periods of confusion in which he believed events were happening years in the past, moments of agitation, short bursts, followed immediately by deep, heavy calm, a mind flickering like an unsteady candle. He often repeated the same stories, sometimes the same sentence, over and over. Servants learned to nod with professional warmth. Ministers learned to wait it out. Repetition became the unofficial anthem of the palace. Even simple emotions turned unpredictable. A remark meant to be amusing could send him into tears. A grave announcement could make him burst into laughter. Reactions arrived sideways. Logic rarely joined them. Despite this, he held genuine affection for people around him. He remembered names with surprising precision, while forgetting the reason meetings were held. He offered pastries during council briefings, a habit that confused foreign diplomats and softened the hardest bureaucrats. Kindness remained intact. Everything else flickered. The Regency government managed the empire's daily business. Metternich, with his crisp posture and sharper policies, became the true center of authority. Ferdinand became the symbol, sometimes comforting, sometimes concerning, always fragile. Behind the scenes, his cognitive decline deepened. Documents overwhelmed him. Small tasks exhausted him. Even holding a quill for too long sent tremors through his hands. His signature gradually shrank. letters collapsing into each other like tired legs at the end of a long walk. No one commented on it. Correctness was a collective survival instinct. In public, Ferdinand did his best. He bowed with slight delay. He smiled a bit too long. He waved at crowds who waved with mixed admiration and pity. Many wondered whether he understood the weight of his role. Some believed he understood too much and too helplessly. The quieter answer sat somewhere in between. By the late 1840s, Europe trembled with unrest. Revolutions spread across cities, faster than the palace could adjust. The empire needed decisiveness, stability, a ruler who could direct change, or at least recognize it. Ferdinand could do neither. During the 1848 uprising, he reportedly insisted on ordering cannons to shoot the rebels. The request was not unusual for a monarch. His reasoning was, he suggested loading the cannons with grapeshot because they make a nice noise. That ended the discussion. When pressure mounted, Metternich fled, the regency crumbled, and Ferdinand, confused, exhausted, and frightened by the noise of crowds, was persuaded to abdicate. He signed the document slowly, stopping twice to rest his hand. The crown passed to his nephew. He left the throne quietly, with no resistance, no bitterness, and no real understanding that history had just moved him aside. A king in name, a patient in practice, and a man whose body and mind never caught up to the title placed on his head. Some reigns end with battles, his ended with paperwork. The last quiet years of a dynasty's broken body. After abdication, Ferdinand moved into quieter rooms, far from the echo of council doors and the weight of documents he could no longer read. Prague became his world, a gentler place, slower, safer, and easier for a fragile man to inhabit. His daily routine thinned down to the things his body could still manage. Simple meals, short walks, moments of confusion softened by familiar faces. There was no emperor left in his habits, only a man living inside whatever strength remained. The seizures continued, but now without the pressure of an empire watching. Some lasted a few seconds. Others stretched into long, shaking episodes that left him pale and unable to speak for hours. His attendants adapted with quiet efficiency, moving lamps out of danger, loosening collars, holding his hand until the tremors passed. It became an unspoken rhythm of the household, a rhythm no one celebrated. Over time, his muscles weakened in a way that no exercise or therapy could reverse. Legs shrank, arms thinned, shoulders curved forward under the weight of a skull that had always been too heavy. Standing became a task. Walking became a memory. Sitting upright became a struggle, on days when the tremors pulled everything out of alignment. Speech followed the same path. Some mornings, he could form whole sentences, soft ones, simple ones. Other days, words slipped away, as if dissolving before they reached his mouth. He often responded to questions with a smile, hoping it would cover the gaps. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Organs began failing quietly, the liver first, then the kidneys, then the heart, not dramatically, just steadily, each decline tracing the same underlying cause. A body assembled on centuries of repeated genes that no longer knew how to hold themselves together. Memory became a thin, unreliable thread. He forgot names, then dates, then places. He sometimes mistook attendants for relatives long gone. He sometimes asked for rooms that no longer existed. The past drifted over him like fog, softening outlines, erasing details. A gentle erasure, but an erasure nonetheless. And still, he had moments of sweetness. A sudden laugh at a passing bird. A quiet fascination with the shape of raindrops on the window. A tendency to offer pastries to visitors, whether he recognized them or not. These small habits remained, fragile, harmless, and the last uncomplicated parts of him. In 1875, His health finally folded, slowly at first, then all at once. Breaths shortened, hands cooled. The tremors weakened into small flutters barely noticeable through the blankets. There was no panic in the room, only the steady acceptance of a life that had been declining since its first day. When he died, the palace did not stage grandeur. No grand speeches, no triumphant requiems, just a quiet note of passing for a man who had lived quietly for decades. In a way, it suited him. Noise had never been his companion. The autopsy told the story the dynasty had avoided for centuries. The skull was thin, misshapen, filled with fluid where structure should have been. The bones were soft, some bent, some partially dissolved. The organs showed signs of long-term degeneration. Every corner of his body carried the imprint of genetic collapse. The Habsburg legacy, written not in documents but in bone tissue. Doctors recorded their findings with careful handwriting, historically polite, clinically brutal. The report traveled through the empire quietly at first. Then, with a growing clarity, even diplomacy couldn't hide. This was not one man's tragedy. It was the biological summary of 2 centuries of choices that ignored biology altogether. Ferdinand became, in the end, the clearest evidence of a dynasty folding in on itself. Gently, predictably, almost politely. His life closed without rebellion, without scandal, without the thunder of collapsing empires. Just the soft, inevitable end of a body built on too many repetitions. Some rulers leave legacies. He left a medical record, and it said more than any crown ever could. The night grows quiet now. The echoes fade. The story settles like dust in a still room. Somewhere in the distance, the cold corridors of old Vienna soften again. Candlelight trembling against stone, footsteps swallowed by velvet halls, the quiet hum of a world that lived far slower than ours. It feels as if the door to that century stands half open for a moment longer, then closes gently, not with force, but with the soft sigh of time returning to itself. History exhales, and the present begins to breathe again. Let your shoulders loosen. Let the weight of the past slip off your thoughts, like a book carefully closed and placed back on its shelf. We leave those rooms behind now. The marble floors, the trembling candles, the fragile breath of a fading dynasty, and return to the quiet of where you are. If this journey kept you company tonight, if the whisper of history helped your mind rest, feel free to like or subscribe, only if it feels gentle to your heart. These stories continue because you're here, listening in the dark, letting the past drift softly through the night. Goodbye, and we will meet again.